Hello. So I'm just going to do another quick video on basic box modeling and specifically how to make this. Right now, bear in mind, I'm just showing you techniques. The techniques you've learned, you can use them to do anything that you can sort of fathom. So I'm just going to use exactly the same techniques to make this. Now, I'm going to start. I'm going to show you a couple of more things as well that you might not have seen yet, but it's nothing major, but will be useful. So I'm going to start by making this box here. So what I'm going to do is just create a new box. Like so, not too worried about the size. I'll just try and get it as equal to that as I can, I guess. So let's go around the side here, and I'm just going to line them up. Not that it matters if you're an orthographic, but I like things to be nice and even. And then I'll just resize that to, I don't know, let's go 50, 20, 20. I'm sure that's about right, yeah. Now what I want to do is I want to cut that wee back section out of this case here. So what I'm going to do is move this closer so I can actually see both of them together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to convert that to an editable poly. And then I'm going to go here and select these, right? But what I'm going to do, before what I did was I deleted it, rebuilt it, and then in here I made another box. But you can reuse parts that you're going to have, that you're basically going to remake later. So the way that you do that is you select what you want to detach, right? And then funnily enough, you go down and push detach. So this is when on polygon selection, down here, detach. And it'll say here, do you want to detach as an element or a clone? So if you detach as, if you just detach, then it'll just make it another object. If you detach as an element, it'll separate it, but stay part of that object, but you can move it around separately. And a detach as a clone means you'll make a copy of it, basically. So I just want to copy it straight up. I just want to separate it. So I'm just going to not select either of those choices. And then you'll see here, if I go, I can select it, and it's just a separate piece. So I can use that again later. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bridge these here. And I'm potentially going to run into, I'm just going to isolate that just now. I'm potentially going to run it, that's the wrong thing you've got selected, Mark. I'm potentially going to run into some problems, but I'll show you how I fix it. So I've got this edge going up the middle there, right? And if you remember before I showed you bridge, so I'm going to select both of them. I'm going to push bridge on both of them. And I'm going to push bridge. So you might notice there's no edge running up the middle there. And that means that these vertices are not attached to anything. They're just loose, flapping about. If this happens to you at some point, it is really easy to fix. What I'm going to do is I'm basically going to create a new edge going right down the middle there. And then I'm going to weld these to the new vertices I make. So I'm going to select these three because I want an edge going up the middle. I'm going to push connect, make sure that's going the way I want, which it is, just one edge going right up the middle. And then I'm going to go to vertex selection. You can weld edges as well, but I'm going to do it with vertices. I'm going to go to target weld. Now what that'll do is if you click on a vertex and hold the button down, left mouse button, you'll see this wee rubber band appear. If I then hover over a vertex, you'll see the cursor changes and let go. It welds that together. So that is now joined that into a nice closed mesh again. And I'll do the same over here. If you go the other way and select that one and go here, it welds it together, but you've got this bump. So it's always going to go to the point where it's going to be the second one you select as, so bear that in mind. So I'm just going to target weld them together, and then I'm left with my case, which is nice. So then, come out of isolation, that's isolation down here, remember? I'm going to just push this guy where this thing is. So I'm just going to move that down, and I'm just going to resize it. So I'm just going to select my vertices, select them all, and then I'm going to use scale 1x to just push it in so it sits inside. You'll notice it is actually cutting in to that other mesh. If I select that one and push, is it Alt X? Yeah. Alt X makes it transparent. And you can see it's cutting in here. That's fine, right? That's better than it hovering slightly over, because it means like it's going to give the illusion of being solid, because it's sort of overlapping each other. And then what I'm going to do is just reshape that a wee bit. So I'm just going to move that in a wee bit, because I want this kind of wee edge there. Now, I'm not too bothered that they're not exactly the same, but if I wanted to reshape this back bit, remember I can just go down, select that, and then just on X, push that back. And that'll reshape it like so. It's a wee bit thicker, but yeah, again, I'm not that bothered. I'm then going to make this magazine. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a new box. I'll worry about the size and everything in a wee minute. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm just going to make sure it's lined up with the casing. So I'm going to go to align. I'm going to select this casing. And then X, Y, Z, pivot to pivot, or center to center will work. Once you get used to this, you'll know what one to use at any given time. And that means it's now just centered to that object, which makes it a wee bit easier for me to just move over here. So at this point, I'm going to go to my bend modifier that I showed you before. But I'm going to, before that, I need to consider how much I want this to bend. At the moment, if I put bend on that, should I now? Well, resizing it. So I don't need to turn this into an editable poly just yet. I'm going to go to bend, and then I'm going to affect that. So 45 degrees here, and then 90 degree direction. So you'll see it is not, is that right? It is not bending terribly well, because it doesn't have enough subdivisions for the height. So I'm going to go back down to box and just put the height segments up. And you'll see it now starts to create a much nicer bend. And from here I can resize it as well. So let's actually just make it a bit neater. Let's go 15, 10, and 30. Yep. And then from there I'm just going to position it where I want it to be. Like that. So here I'm going to use some techniques to do. I don't know if you can make it out here, but I've actually indented that there. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to do some poly modeling on this guy. So I'm going to right click that, convert to editable poly. And you'll see what happens there is it collapses the entire stack down. So the bend is now part of the model. I can't go back and fix it unless I undo everything. So bear that in mind when you start collapsing things. But I know that this shape is what I want to work with. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to inset these polygons. So I'm going to select all the ones on this side. And I'm going to select all the ones on the other side. Now you could use symmetry that was in the other video, but you know, for the sake of how quick it is, I'm not going to bother. And then I'm going to click here, inset. And what that does is that's going to pull in from the edge new polygons that I can then play with. So that's fine. I'm just going to eyeball it there. And then I'm going to go to extrude. And that's clearly wrong. It's sticking out and I want it to go in. So I just need to adjust this to a negative value. Not much. Just, there you go, minus 1.8. 1 point. Yeah, that'll do. 1.9. Get it to there. And then what I've got here as well is I've got this wee bottom bit sticking out. So what I did with that for that model is I actually extruded out a part of it there, but what you'll see has happened is it's kind of beveled that as well because of the bend, and I don't really want that, so I'm just going to make a whole separate box to put on the bottom here. You can attach all this together later, remember. So I'm just going to make a wee box, really simple, and then I'm just going to align it to that. And then I'm just going to literally just maneuver it into position. So I'm just going to rotate that around like so. And that's fine. Yeah, I'm happy with that. They're going to make the handle. So what I did with that was actually a wee bit more convoluted, a wee bit more complicated, but not really, I guess. I'm going to start with a cylinder, right? I'm just going to make a cylinder, and then the first thing I do is put it into position by using a line here. Pivot to pivot, yep. and then I'm just going to move it down here. But to get that shape, that kind of, you know, elongated sort of, what's the word, elliptical, oblong shape, I first of all, to make my life a wee bit easier, I reduced the number of edges on that because I don't need that many. I also just realised that's got a smooth on it, which is going to be part 2 of this. So I'm just going to reduce the sides down to something a bit more manageable. Ideally I want it to be kind of symmetrical. So I think 8 will probably do. That's fine. And I'm also going to put the cap segments up purely because having a 8-sided polygon is a bit of a no-no. So it's better to have more quads than one big one, but you'll see why when I start to talk about smoothing. And then I just resized that. Excuse me. I'm actually going to put the height segments down as well, just for now. So the less vertices you're working with, the kind of easier it's going to be. So I'm just going to rescale that using the scale tool. Select my vertices. I'm just going to use the scale tool to just reshape that into a bit more of a kind of grip shape. And then, you see it tapers out here. That's because I'm now going to add more edges to connect. Here, and then I'm going to use pinch to just push them up and down to, yeah, about there, I think. And then I'm going to grab my vertices up here, and I'm just going to pull them in. Like that, and then I'm going to use move to just create that kind of angle there, like so. I realise I'm running out of time on my video. So to make the site, all I did was pretty much exactly the same as this. Make a box and reshape it. I could actually just copy that one. Remember, shift and drag and you'll copy one. And then I'm just going to resize that. So I'm going to use scale to make it thinner and shorter. And then I'm just going to, move those end ones back to there. And then I'm going to move that up like that. See? Dead easy to do. Now, the pivot's gone a bit funky, but I'm going to talk about that in another video as well. But it's still usable. And then the last thing to do is basically just make a cylinder. And do exactly the same as in the mug tutorial. So I'm just going to right click, I'm rushing a wee bit now, convert to editable poly, select all those vertices in the middle, not the ones around the edge, because I don't want to resize them. Nope, that's not Alt. Hold Alt to deselect them, remember? I just want the ones in the middle there. And then I'm going to scale it up to pull it apart. And then I'm just going to bevel these. Not bevel, extrude. Extrude that down, negative, like so, to make the barrel. And then from there, I can just move it into position. I probably should have moved it into position first, to be honest. And then I'm just going to rotate that round. Oh, see the funky numbers there. Angle snap, remember that? Means it only rotates in 5-degree increments. Really, really nice. And then I'm just going to move that into position. It's a bit big. Actually, it's not too bad. It's quite cool. But I will resize it slightly. So I'm just going to grab all the vertices again, the whole thing. Even the ones I can't see, I know I've selected them because I've dragged over the whole thing. And then I'm just going to resize that down ever so slightly. Like so. So, nothing fancy there, just pretty standard modelling techniques using multiple objects. In the next video, though, I'll show you how to take it one step further. Okay?